certainly not least, we have Tim Eggleston, who will talk about life at the big state university, the flagship school, and Tim is a Yanni grad. We forget for that. Oh yeah, we love all the
I'll try to produce that name. You guys didn't bring tomatoes or anything. So, thanks again for having me tonight. My name is Tim Eggleston. I'm the St. Louis regional rep for Mizzou, so I'm here to talk a little bit about kind of that aspect of a large flagship state institution. And before I get into that, I was kind of reminded when I was sitting there, as Dave mentioned, the importance of visiting a campus. And I imagine right about now, most of your sons are starting to receive mail, email, and mail from different colleges and universities. And those are great sources of information. They can direct you, point you in the right direction. We kind of have a joke too, though. I know in our publications that we send out to students, you would think that it never rains in Columbia, Missouri, based on some of the pictures that are taken. College looks like this perfect little world. So to that point, school, in terms of the pictures, any school is going to really look good on paper. Like I said, great information that can really point you in the right direction, but can't stress enough the actually visiting the campus. And also to Stephanie's point too, I think more often than not, students do step foot on a campus and they do get a good, either a feeling in their gut more often than not. It may not happen right away, but maybe at the end of their visit. And the thing to know about that, if you do visit the school and it doesn't feel right, you're that much closer. Think of it as you're just that much closer to finding that right fit. So it will happen. It's just going to take a little bit of time. So specifically with larger state flagship institutions, people like to focus in on that word large in terms of number, the size of the campus, and then also in terms of student body. Everyone's going to vary a little bit in terms of the size. There are some flagship state schools that get as big as 50 or 60,000 students. At Mizzou right now we have a little under 35,000 total students. If you're just looking at undergraduate population, that number is closer to about 26,000. In the same kind of respect, the common question that I get to probably just about in every single visit is in regards to class size. Are you going to be in every single class going to be some sort of lecture style hall? I can tell you, you will have bigger lecture style halls, especially early on in your time at a larger school. We have a running joke in the admissions office that the class begins with intro and ends in ology. Probably it's pretty good odds that class is going to be a lecture style hall. We typically do try to supplement those lectures with some sort of lab or discussion group one time a week. But I think you'll really see as you start to get into your specific major or department in some of these larger schools, that's where you see that class size start to shrink. Within the larger university, there are going to be smaller schools and colleges. So Stephanie mentioned that just the one kind of College of Arts and Science. We have 20 different colleges and schools within the larger university. So we have one, the largest is the College of Arts and Science that makes up a lot of the liberal arts and some of the lab sciences, so everything from English to biology are all housed within those departments. But then there are also some professional schools that make up the larger campus as well. So the other thing too that kind of applies to all colleges and universities is when you're paying tuition, that's not just what you're paying in terms of for the classes that you're taking, but also the fees that are included within that. And one of those that I stress that every college and university is going to offer is some sort of career center. So if your son, if they're not sure what they want to study, and I can't remember the statistic on the number of students that change their major while in college, but I believe it's somewhere between 3 and 5 times. Go and see the career counselor in the career office on campus. Typically they'll offer some assessments, develop a little bit more self-awareness, and kind of help you get the ball rolling. So that's just to kind of applies across the board. So I typically get asked, what kind of student is ideal for, I guess, a larger school like Mizzou? And I don't know that there really is a, particular kind of student. It certainly helps if you are outgoing and I think willing to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. In high school, you typically have guidance counselors and teachers that are always reminding you, hey, don't forget about this deadline coming up, this homework assignment, group project, so on and so forth. And that's not always the case when you get to college. So I think that the fact that you're willing, like I said, to kind of step out of your comfort zone, but also be willing to ask for help too. And that applies to this whole kind of general college planning. I work in college admissions, and I still don't know anyone close to all that there is to know regarding admissions to a bunch of different colleges or universities. So as I mentioned, in terms of the larger size of the campus, about 280 different majors on campus in 19 different schools and colleges. In terms of the campus atmosphere as well, right around 600 different student organizations. So I always stress the importance at a larger school. It's really magnified the importance of getting involved. And once again, going to that point of willing to step outside of your comfort zone. At a larger school, larger state flagship institution, your willingness to get involved is really going to make a bigger place feel a lot smaller and really kind of help ease that transition to college. First time you're away from home for an extended amount of time for most students, and by getting involved on a college campus, it's only going to make your life easier, and it's going to, like I said, really going to help you get to know some new people and make it feel a little bit more like home. So I guess I'll mention too, in terms of the admission process, it's really going to kind of vary from school to school. In Mizzou, we're on what's called a rolling admission. Essentially, what that means is we don't have any specific deadlines for an application. So students can apply anytime in their senior year, and within 2 to 5 weeks, they're going to have an answer back from us. Now that's not every flagship institution has the same policy, but you'll see quite a few schools, especially around the state, they're going to have a similar admission process. Some schools will offer incentives to applying early. So early in your senior year. One, you typically do hear back from the school a little bit sooner. So for students that are applying in September, October, they're going to have a decision back probably within 2 weeks. Wait until winter break, and sometimes where it takes 5 weeks. The other big incentive is students get to sign up for housing on campus a little bit earlier as well. The admissions process at Mizzou, we are going to look for 3 things. We're going to look at classes taken in high school. We look for specifically 17 core classes. It's 4 years of English and math, 3 years of social studies and science, 2 years of the same foreign language, and 1 fine art credit. If students have those 17 core classes, a 24 in the ACT or a 1090 combined critical reading and math subsections on the SAT, they're going to be automatically admissible. For scores a little bit below that, we use this sliding scale. I don't have the numbers in front of me. We use a sliding scale using the combination of standardized test score and high school class rank. If students attend a non-ranking high school, we calculate what's called a core GPA. Core GPA is just those core classes that we use for admission. So we're not going to be looking at any PE or religion type courses. It's a flat 4.0 scale. All the pluses and minuses are stripped from that calculation. So no letters of recommendation, essays, personal statements. Some students will submit that information. Really the only time that I've seen that have an impact on admission is if the student is right on the borderline for admission. For scholarships, there will be some that have essays and interviews associated with them, but none specifically for admission. To kind of go back, and I'll kind of jump around here, but going back to that idea of size, what some schools, the size of Mizzou will try to do is they offer programming. Sometimes it's associated with residential life or the dorms on campus to kind of give students that first group. One really popular program on our campus is called the Freshman Intergroup Program, or FIGS for short. It's 15 to 20 freshmen, all living on the same floor in the dorms, group based on their major or a specific interest that you have, and that includes undecided students. They take 3 classes together their first semester, and they'll also meet once a week with a peer and or faculty advisor. So I think it is, especially for students that maybe don't know many people that are coming from their high school or are just looking to meet some new people. It is a great option because it gives you kind of that first group on campus to kind of help ease that transition, so to speak. Let me think. I was just about to say something and now I forgot. The other thing too regarding freshman interest groups, access to resources as well. The resources are there. There's a large number of opportunities for internships. We are a research university. Not every flagship campus has that distinction, but research is very popular among undergraduates, so our professors are doing research in addition to community service and instruction in the classroom. Students will earn credit through research. Students will earn grants through research, and we've had quite a few students that will go on to be published as well. And research is something that, regardless of what you decide to do after you graduate, is really going to look great on an application for postgraduate work or for graduate school as well. And this idea just popped into my head too, and I think it applies to all schools as well. So I know while we don't require letters of recommendation, when you're graduating from college, that job that you're applying for or that graduate or professional program, they're all going to at the very least require references. So it is really important, especially I think if you think about a larger school like Mizzou, it is important to get that interaction. No one's going to be forcing you to go and speak to your professor within that class. So professors all on campus are required to hold office hours throughout the week for students to come in, ask some questions if they have any, or if you just have a general interest in the class, students are encouraged to come in. And the more that you're willing to kind of foster those relationships with faculty and professors on campus, it's not only going to help within the classroom, obviously, but also when it comes time for some letters of recommendation. It's going to be a lot easier to go to a professor, just like it is in high school. It's going to be a lot easier to go to a teacher that you have that knows a little bit about you, is willing to vouch for you, than, hey, professor, I had you for, freshman philosophy. I know I never came and talked to you, but I'm kind of in a jam and I need a letter of recommendation. It's typically not going to apply. So, sorry, question?
We're supposed to wait, but this is specific to Columbia.
Sure.
With the SEC coming in, does that change anything other than what the other lady said about now we really are an ESPN school? Does it change academics? Does it change the landscape of Mizzou?
That's a good question. It was if you weren't able to hear it, the question was regarding with Mizzou's move to the athletic conference and Southeastern Conference, kind of the ESPN school, how does that change the landscape academically, kind of? Is that kind of what you're saying?
The landscape of the school and most importantly, the academics. Does that impact that?
We've had the same admission requirements at Mizzou, I believe, since 1997. So we've had record numbers of freshmen that have come on campus the past 10 years or so. We're expecting a slightly smaller class this year, but there's been no impact on, if you meet the admission requirements to Mizzou, you're admissible. We don't have a cap to the number of spots currently. I think we reserved that right in case the freshman class were to grow to a size where we couldn't, successfully serve the student body. For a long time, we had about 80% of our student body came from the state of Missouri, another 20%. And where the past 2 years we've had a little bit more than 31% of our student body come from out of state. So you are seeing more and more schools kind of going, especially in Missouri, where high school graduates are starting to kind of flatten and even decline in some parts of the state. But it's not really there's no change in the day-to-day operations on the admission side, I guess would be the best way.